Hi everyone, welcome. I'm down here in my wormery preparing to check in on my VermiBag Mini. I've already brought it away from the wall over here next to the bench, and I've brought down my information board. I've still got to make a run up to the kitchen to bring down some food for these little guys. But I also wanted to have a little quick discussion, a little sidetrack from just jumping right into the feeding, about this time of year. This time of year, us worm farmers have access to all kinds of good, yummy stuff once the Halloween season comes and goes for our worms. And that's going to be coming up pretty soon for us here. And I've just been kind of getting into that mood lately, you know. So in that vein, I was curious to see, you know, every time we check in on the VermiBag Mini, there's a huge pumpkin stem in there. I was wondering, how long has it been now since we put that in? And guess what? Over 550 days. 556 days since that thing was in there. I mean, that even predates the launch of this bin, because these worms were working on that stem in their last home, in their previous home, in the yellow buckets. And you know, the other interesting thing is that yellow pumpkin over there. This thing predates everything. This thing goes back 2 years now to not last Halloween, but Halloween 2 years ago. And this thing rarely makes an appearance, but it did make an appearance in the video when that pumpkin stem was put into the yellow buckets. It was yellow bucket number 1. It's not one of the ones that you see under the bench or under the shelf over there. Bucket number 1 was given this massive pumpkin stem. We'll see it when we get in there, but most of you probably know what I'm talking about already. And this pumpkin has been sitting under my bench all that while. All the other contemporaries came and went, and then even last year's pumpkins all came and went, and this one is finally starting to decay just in time for Halloween this year. So I really wanted to share that, because this thing's just made no appearance since that. I don't think it's made any appearance other than maybe being in the background here and there. So, and then these things were gourds from last Halloween. Hard as a rock. Can only imagine what it would be like to try to compost these things. So we're going to get into here. Let's get to feeding. How do you like that for a nice juicy feast for the wormies? I see apple peel here and potato peel, I think. Or maybe just more apple. We'll see more when we actually feed it to the worms. It's a fairly substantial quantity. There's coffee over here as well as a coffee filter. And I've got my supply of bedding, worm chow, grit, and all those other kind of staple worm feeding supplies within easy reach. The theme here, I guess, has been trying to work our way up. We've always been just seeing the bottom edge of this window forever. And it started to feel like, wouldn't it be nice if we can eventually get to the point where we've got so much stuff in this system already that we can't even see the window? That would be really nice, I think. So, for that reason, we've been trying to get really generous on the bedding, and we did something similar in the prior feeding as well. So when we came in here last time, 2 weeks ago, we found the remnants of a similar application of generous top level bedding. This stuff was all sprayed down with water after it got placed in here, but it wasn't very, very damp. But I did sort of count on the recirculation of moisture within the system beneath the plastic cover we just removed to help the stuff obtain some moisture. Because to me, somehow, just giving it the old spray application like we did with the spray wand, somehow it just feels like it's only coating the surface in a way. And yeah, it soaks in a little bit, and the cardboard might feel a little bit damp, but maybe there's still dry parts of it inside, or might take a little while for the moisture to make its way through. It's almost like a sponge. It does seem like you could maybe kind of push its limit on how much moisture it can hold within itself. So I kind of did, at a surface level at least, what we did last time too, which was to just help all this newly added bedding kind of get worked in with the surrounding materials. It's had 2 weeks to get infiltrated with all the lovely bacteria and microbes, mold and fungi and whatever that lives in this system. All those things that help the worms break down the foods that they're eating. And you know, as I've been working my way through here, my hands are kind of feeling this really nice, comfortable sort of moisture level, or at least so it seems to me. But I think that feeding we're giving them today is going to bring with it a good bit of moisture. And I was thinking we would just sort of skip on adding moisture the way we did last time, which was to spray it in. I think I've just finally encountered the massive pumpkin stem being worked on by the worms for over 550 days now. It was so cool because when I watched the video at the time when we put it in, and I watched the video at the first check-in too, because at the first video it was connected to a big part of the pumpkin with all the yummy vegetable matter still on there. And I think there had been a 12-day interval between the application of this thing and the check-in that followed. And at that time it had been stripped clean of all the pumpkin, and it had these massive, all these little features where they looked much, oopsie, there I go, I broke a piece of it off. And it's so fragile, I should be more careful. And I guess the other school of thought is maybe I should help it along and just get it broken down already. Well, I think that is really the theme. Lately I've been trying to get to that same mindset of doing away with pumpkin stems when I bump into them. So I have actually been doing exactly that, busting them up everywhere I see them almost, but this is the one I think is sort of exempt from that that treatment. Because that one is pretty incredible. Ah, look at that piece of gourd there too. The gourds, they don't hold up like the pumpkin stems. They're definitely working down, and this one I definitely felt a big chunk of it vanish when I bumped into it earlier. I definitely broke off a good large hunk of it. So, alright, what else? There was that other pumpkin stem that we ran into earlier, but I was a little distracted, so I didn't really apply any force or pressure to it to try to break it down. But if we see it again, we certainly can try to break that one down. Like I said, I think we're just going to see about maybe trying to let that one over there keep going at its own rate, only because it was so huge when we started. I mean, when I put it into the bottom of the rectangular yellow bucket where it was originally fed to the worms in their old environment, the thing barely fit inside inside the bucket. It was so large. So let's see what we've got here. It's still frozen together in just one lump. As it came out of the refrigerator, I see apple peels, and I think they're just different types of apple. Sometimes I'm the one that actually makes the run to the vegetable market to pick up the apples for my mom when she makes these apple pastries, and lucky for me and the rest of the family, she likes to make that stuff pretty frequently. But she has like a combo recipe where you need a little bit of this kind of apple, a little bit of that kind of apple, and it tastes so good. So I suppose by putting that thing right there, right in the middle of the action, it's probably going to help a lot too. This, I think its days are numbered. All right, let's not forget, we've got a couple other things we can add to this. Sprinkle in some grit, and let's not forget, we also had this, right? The coffee. All right, and the coffee sometimes gets deployed with a little bit of worm chow too. What a nice feeding. It's making me hungry. All right, so I'll just set that coffee filter aside briefly so we can cover up, and here's that stem. This stem, however, does not date back that far. I don't remember where this particular stem actually came from offhand, but I am able to chip away at it a little bit, so in keeping with what I'm trying to establish as my new mindset on slow composting items, to a certain degree. We're going to see what we can do about helping certain things along when we bump into them. So, very nice. I don't know why. I've always been so stingy with the bedding. Feels good to be generous with it. Alright, what was this? Oh, missing piece of gourd? Or maybe the outer husk of a mango seed? Whatever it is, it's pretty fragile. Chips up with the least amount of effort into even smaller pieces. So now, instead of one big piece for the worms to share, there's a dozen or more itsy bitsy pieces that can go around to so many more wormies. Hopefully. Where do we feed? Right down the middle. So that's where the feeding zone indicator is going to go. Right there. We don't even need to tear it open. We can just stick it right there as like an X marks the spot sort of indicator. And guess what? With all the leaves falling in my yard, I'm suddenly back in the mood to get out of storing, I guess more in a hoarding sort of fashion. I've been hoarding this last batch of leaves that came out of my outdoor store of bags, outdoor storage bag of leaves. And something I often like to do is give my systems a nice top coating of leafy matter. I mean the prepared bedding or the shredded paper cardboard mix, that does a pretty good job standing in for the leaves as a top dressing, but if you really want to make the place look pretty and probably something the worms really enjoy being in, I think leaves are hard to match. You know, something I told myself earlier was that maybe we want to be careful about applying too much really dry stuff, especially like here. You know, I just don't even think about it when I'm just tossing stuff in at the end as a top dressing, but I've been thinking deploying it damp might be a better idea than just dropping it in dry. So luckily I had my water jug right here on hand, so we can be generous with the application of moisture. Hopefully what we added there was enough to compensate for whatever moisture that those leaves would want to try to absorb. And hey, check this out too. Cool top covering. And the only reason for this, I think, is to provide shade. And I'm wondering if this being translucent and getting daylight, I mean, I turned the lights off, but there's still daylight coming in through the windows, versus this, which will be darker underneath. I wonder if there'll be a difference in terms of the amount of worm traffic we observe. For that matter, you know what? Maybe we should darken only part of it, and then it'll be almost like an experiment. All right, everyone, that's it for the video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. That's always really appreciated. And if you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. That's very much appreciated as well. All right, everyone, have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye now.